Hello, I'm Amanda Walker and welcome to Inside America, the show that brings you insight and analysis of the biggest issues facing the United States right now. On this week's show, billionaires, multi-millionaires, YouTube podcast regulars, conspiracy theory enthusiasts, a wrestling mogul and a TV presenter, introducing the Trump administration 2.0.
We put together a great cabinet.
Elon Musk calls it revolutionary. Others say it's extreme. However you view it, the president's team is now confirmed and work is underway. They're an unorthodox bunch, united by one thing: absolute loyalty to Donald Trump. Coming up, we look at the most controversial appointments and what they're planning to do.
I'd shut down the FBI Hoover building on day one and reopening the next day as a museum of the deep state.
And we speak to former Secretary of Defense and CIA Director Leon Panetta about what this cabinet might mean for America.
Even in the first term that Trump had, there were guardrails. Those guardrails are gone. They're not there in this cabinet, and that's a concern.
So, back in 2017, when Donald Trump appointed his first cabinet, it was widely received as one of the most conservative and business-friendly collection of picks this country had seen. But over the course of 4 years, many were fired, forced out, or they resigned, often for disagreeing with or contradicting the president. Few are still on speaking terms with him. This time seems different. Qualification for top government positions appears to be based primarily on commitment to the MAGA mission and an unwavering devotion to the man in the Oval Office.
We put together a great cabinet.
This is the team entrusted with delivering Donald Trump's agenda. It's been called a cabinet of curiosities. Safe to say, most are not conventional picks. Rarely has there been a more contentious lineup.
We're watching it and...
Riding high on the controversy list is vaccine skeptic Robert F. Kennedy Jr., confirmed after a rocky hearing as Trump's health secretary.
Your organization is making money selling a child's product to parents for $26, which casts fundamental doubt on the usefulness of vaccines. Can you tell us now? You can make that call. Are you supportive of these onesies?
I'm supportive of vaccines.
After promising during his hearing not to change the childhood vaccine schedule, Kennedy now says he will investigate it. All picks were on their best behavior when being questioned by lawmakers.
Senator, I was falsely charged.
Trump's defense secretary, former Fox News host Pete Hegseth, was confirmed in a dramatic tie-breaking vote after fending off accusations of heavy drinking and aggressive behavior towards women.
One of your colleagues said that you got drunk at an event at a bar and chanted, "Kill all Muslims." Another colleague, not anonymous, we have this, said that you took co-workers to a strip club. You were drunk, you tried to dance with strippers, you had to be held off the stage, and one of your employees in that event filed a sexual harassment charge as a result of it.
Senator, anonymous false charges.
They're not anonymous.
None of that, including his views on women in the military, was enough to block his path.
Women shouldn't be in combat at all. Where is the reference to standards that they should be there if they can carry, if they can run? I don't see that at all, Mr. Hegseth.
Senator, the concerns I have and the concerns that many have had, especially in ground combat units, is that in pursuit of certain percentages or quotas, standards have been changed.
Deep Democratic opposition also didn't stop Trump loyalist Kash Patel becoming the new head of the FBI. The MAGA podcast regular has railed against the agency he now leads.
I'd shut down the FBI Hoover building on day one and reopening the next day as a museum of the deep state. And I'd take the 7,000 employees that work in that building and send them across America to chase down criminals. Go be cops.
There are fears that Patel will use the FBI as a tool for retribution against Trump's enemies.
Kash Patel, conspiracy theorist, January 6 denier, MAGA sycophant, and political provocateur, will be FBI director. The absurdity of it.
Another explosive hearing saw now Director of National Intelligence Tulsi Gabbard refuse to call whistleblower Edward Snowden a traitor.
Senator, as someone who has
your
served
answer,
in
yes or no, is Edward Snowden a traitor to the United States of America?
As someone who has worn our uniform
in
combat, I understand how critical our national security is.
Apparently you don't.
She did, however, row back on previous pro-Russia comments.
Criticizing Putin.
You're gambling with the lives of millions of people. You're gambling with World War III.
The war in Ukraine is top of the agenda for Secretary of State Marco Rubio. He's broadly seen as the most conventional appointment, tasked with carrying out Trump's foreign policy, including his demolition of the U.S. Agency for International Development, though Rubio's past comments have shown strong support for foreign aid.
Anybody who tells you that we can slash foreign aid and that will bring us to balance is lying to you. Foreign aid is less than 1% of our budget. It's just not true.
How far he will be willing to go against his own beliefs is something to watch. As for the others, loyalty tests have been passed with flying colours. Energy Secretary and fossil fuels CEO Chris Wright donated $500,000 to Trump's campaign.
Let me tell you who I am.
Education Secretary and former wrestling mogul Linda McMahon says she's all in on Trump's plans to dismantle the agency she is now leading.
What do you do, chokeslammer?
The combined wealth in this room is pretty staggering, but none come close to the richest of them all. Elon Musk is the other looming figure they all must now bow to.
Hey, Elon, let the cabinet speak just for a second. Anybody unhappy with Elon? If you are, well, throw him out of here.
Now, Trump has always promised to disrupt Washington, and his chosen ones seem primed to do just that. It's part of the overall shock and awe strategy that has delighted Trump's supporters and horrified career officials. Former Defense Secretary and CIA Director Leon Panetta has seen plenty over the years, but nothing quite like this.
It's a very unusual set of cabinet picks because the first requirement for all of them was loyalty. Normally, what presidents look for is experience, distinguished background in a particular issue area, having earned some respect for their leadership in some way, and loyalty obviously comes in as part of that as well. But it's not the primary thing. The primary reason is because they are well qualified for the position that they've been chosen for. That's not the case with this cabinet. The first order of business has been loyalty to the president, pure and simple.
And who is most concerning to you?
I'm concerned about the Secretary of Defense. While he had some combat background, which is important, he never had a responsibility to run a large operation, particularly one as big as DOD. He also had some problems both with regards to incidents involving drinking as well as sexual abuse that frankly raised a lot of questions about his integrity. And so bottom line is I'm concerned about his ability to really exercise the kind of command and control that's required of a Secretary of Defense working with the military to try to protect our national security.
Let's look at Kash Patel, the choice, not directly the cabinet, but the choice to lead the FBI. How concerned are you that the FBI, under his leadership, will ultimately be a tool for revenge for Donald Trump? Do you think that could actually happen?
Well, it's another appointment that raises serious concerns because this is an individual that, again, did not have much background in terms of the FBI, law enforcement, and as a matter of fact, said that he would, prior to even being appointed, that he would seek retribution against the political opposition of the president. He again testified before the Congress that he would be loyal to the FBI, be loyal to its mission. But because of the statements he's made in the past, and because of the concerns about whether or not he truly will represent independent law enforcement that the FBI is all about, I think that still remains to be seen.
From your experience, what can be the actual outcome here of having these kinds of people in these crucial roles?
Well, the fundamental problem is that if you're selecting a cabinet that is a group of yes people who will never challenge the president, never bring concerns to the president, never question him when he's wrong, then it becomes a very weak cabinet and not one that kind of stands on its own. The cabinet in the past that I've been a part of have always been independent enough to speak up about the policies they thought were right, and sometimes challenge the president that he was taking the wrong position on a particular issue. And as a matter of fact, even in the first term that Trump had, there were guardrails in the cabinet, people who were willing to speak up.
Marco Rubio, probably the most conventional pick, certainly a serious politician with a decent background. He is already going against a lot of the things that previously, like USAID, he'd spoken out very forcefully saying that foreign aid was very important in terms of soft power. Already he's having to go against some things that he has said pretty strongly in the past. You mentioned speaking up. Do you think Marco Rubio, as Secretary of State, will speak up? Because he's got some pretty strongly held beliefs that he's voiced in the past that he's now having to go against.
Look, I would hope that he would. I think it's very important. I'm a believer, having served in the president's cabinet, having served as president's chief of staff, that it is very important to be able to speak truth to power. That's what presidents need. Because presidents don't know everything about everything. They just don't. And sometimes they're going to operate by their gut sense. And this is a president who often operates by his gut sense as opposed to, what the best policy would be for the country. Look, that meeting in the Oval Office that took place with Zelensky should never have happened. Normally what you do is you have some words of greeting, and then the press is taken out of the room so that you can have a frank discussion. Somebody in that room, there were a lot of cabinet members in that room, not one stood up and said, "We ought to excuse the press, Mr. President."
In all the moments that you've experienced in and around the White House over a very long career, how much did this moment stand out to you?
I think it's a moment of great concern. For 80 years, every president, Republican and Democrat, supported some basic principles when it came to our national security, that we should be world leaders, that we should be supporting our alliances, particularly like NATO and other important alliances, that we should represent the basic values of democracy, and that people have the right to govern themselves, and that we should stand up to tyrants and to dictators, those who are trying to destroy those democratic values. This president is backing off of those kinds of positions.
How do you think Trump's first cabinet would have reacted to what happened in the Oval Office with Zelensky? And how do you think that contrasts with how this cabinet will have been reacting to it behind closed doors?
I was a very good friend of John Kelly, who became the president's chief of staff. John Kelly would have never allowed that situation to have happened. he would have immediately stopped it and taken the cameras out of that room. That did not happen. The result ultimately hurts the credibility of the United States, and it sends the wrong message, frankly, not just to Putin, but to Xi and China and other autocrats. So we pay a price if there aren't people that are willing to stand up and exercise discipline and do what is right.
Former Secretary of Defense and CIA Director Leon Panetta there. So the cabinet is primed and ready to carry out President Trump's bidding. The Democrats are braced for chaos, but how do the American people feel about these individuals? Joining me to discuss that and more are political commentator Rena Shah and Republican strategist John Feary. John, let me start with you. So there is this recent poll about the popularity of cabinet members. It was a surprise to me who the most popular is. Robert F. Kennedy Jr., Health Secretary. Explain.
Well, he's got the Kennedy name. I think that there are a lot of people like, his focus on making America healthy again. I think there's just a general sense out there that we're not as healthy as we ought to be. And then he's also someone who's outside the political mainstream, and he's not a natural politician. And people like that. And he's also spent a lot of time working on a lot of issues in the private sector, trying to, children's health. That's his organization. And I think that has stuck with him for a while.
And children's health, though, Rena, he's also a vaccine skeptic, and we've got this potential measles outbreak looming. Where do you see that heading?
Well, I see RFK Jr. to be provocative in a way that a lot of Americans feel drawn to, and particularly younger American women are thinking, this is a guy who's actually saying what people have in the back of their minds. And in essence, what he's done by being a vaccine skeptic, turned pro-measles vacciner guy, it's a evolution that most people are wondering about. How could it be? But he sees the data and he sees what could happen is that these children could die on his watch. And it's a very important role that he's taken on. But what it does is leaves him out there in the wilderness with the people who trusted him to take, again, what he was doing when he was a private citizen into now this public sector role.
Kennedy aside, the same poll seemed to be that public opinion generally is no opinion, that it's basically too early. Do you see this cabinet, John, becoming a notorious cabinet? Because it's full of characters, isn't it, for sure?
Well, it's definitely full of characters. It's a lot of unconventional choices. You have folks who have a lot of TV experience and know how to deal with TV, like Pete Hegseth. They're coming into bureaucracies, and a lot of them have been trained by the MAGA media, and they're going to be very loyal to that MAGA media. I mean, you think of Kash Patel, who's been out there for a long time. The one overriding factor about this cabinet, though, is they're going to be loyal to Trump, and I think Trump picked them specifically because they bought into the vision. They're not going to be like the first cabinet, which was, there's always this thought out there that you have a team of rivals and all that, but team of rivals can really kind of destabilize a cabinet, and that's what happened in the first term. So we're not going to have a team of rivals, we're going to have a team of teammates, and I think that's what Trump wants.
Yeah, loyalty is the big issue. We'll talk more about that in a moment. But Rena, what about this notion that you have people leading agencies who have either massively criticized those agencies or are vowing to dismantle them? That might be a bit confusing to our viewers, that they've been chosen to lead these agencies that they've talked very negatively about. How's that going to play out?
It feels rather hypocritical to many people, but to a great many, it also feels like Trump has taken a very experienced crop of people to come bring from private life into a public life. And what I see this time is I do have a little bit of a different take than my friend here. I don't see them to be the full-on loyalists of Trump 1.0. I thought that was a cast of characters that actually had no qualifications. A lot of these people were simply just showing up and saying, we are for Trump. They were very dangerous types, many of them. This time I do see a danger in some because of their very extreme views about, again, these very agencies they've been asked and tapped to lead or dismantle. But I do see these people as having had full lives before they've come to government and public service. And I think that's what makes this cabinet very different this time. One particular pick that I don't think is a loyalist is former Congresswoman Lori Chavez DeRemer, who's been tapped to be Labor Secretary. She's actually known to be more of a moderate Republican, and she's more pro-union than most. And so to see somebody like that tapped for Secretary of Labor, who hasn't fully bowed at the altar of Trump, tells you that this is a mix of people that have been tapped for what they may bring to the table. Not all of them, but a great many of them.
He is trying to make a point with that pick, and I agree with you that she's very much pro-labor, but Trump is trying to make the point that he's pro-labor. He's trying to, and he did very well with labor union voters last time around. And that makes many, to your point, in the business community very, very nervous. There were several Republicans that were thinking of voting against her because they didn't like where she was on the union issue. But because it's Trump, it makes it awfully hard to vote against any of his cabinet picks.
When you look at that first cabinet meeting, you've got applause, you've got real adulation for Donald Trump, but who's going to stay the course, who is not? Because first time round, a lot of them weren't there for long, were they, Rena? Who do you see as being the first to go?
I think it's anyone's guess as to who could go first. But one thing is true, is that Elon Musk's thumbprint on this entire administration is so great that I think actually Elon Musk will be somebody that is the one that lets a cabinet member go.
Well, yeah, let's talk about Musk, because obviously you can tell that these cabinet members are very happy to pledge allegiance to Donald Trump. Are they happy, John, to pledge allegiance to Elon Musk?
No, not necessarily. And we saw that early on when he sent out that notification, email me back, and Kash Patel and Marco Rubio said, oh, we're in charge of our own domain here. Don't do that. So there's going to be some institutional kind of fights between Musk and the Doge boys and the folks in the leading these agencies. That being said, I think Musk is doing a lot of the work that they can't do by identifying people and positions that maybe are not necessary, and will save these guys a lot of money, save the people in the cabinet a lot of money. So there is tension there. It's about who's driving the train. Ultimately, it's the cabinet members who have to drive the train and personnel and OPM, not necessarily Elon Musk, but we'll see.
So how's that going to shake down, Rena? Someone falls out with Elon Musk. Are they then out? Is he like a de facto Trump? Is he, you don't fall out with Trump, you don't fall out with Musk either?
I think the tension that is constantly on display and has been over the past month and some change since this administration took seat is healthy. And a lot of Americans actually think that's healthy. I don't know that there's good, reliable public polling we can look at to say so, but my general sense is that a lot of Americans felt like this city, Washington, D.C., did not serve them. Forget not serving them, didn't even speak to them. And so when you see such a big figure, a larger-than-life type of personality like an Elon Musk, you get a sense that there's activity there. There's something happening, and that something, whether it's good or bad, people quite don't care. They really believe that Washington is moving in a way that could do something really fantastic. So there's a lot of suffering happening, of course, within federal government employees and within the agencies. I don't know that that erodes the trust of Americans in institutions as much as it's already been happening. I haven't answered your question, though, about Elon and Trump. That's really anyone's guess. I don't know that either the two men themselves know what their relationship is. I think it's very symbiotic, and as long as it remains so, they both will keep it as is.
Yeah, I would say about Musk, he's a heat shield for Trump right now, which is fascinating because, they spent so much of their time the first term going after Trump. And now, Musk is taking all this heat, and Musk is doing exactly what Trump wants. And he's identifying disloyal people in the different agencies. He's getting rid of redundancy. This is going to be a symbiotic relationship. The biggest thing about Musk is, can he, after the shock and awe campaign, can he actually make any of these changes permanent? And the other thing we found with the Supreme Court today, what is going to happen with USAID, and do any of these firings actually stick? And we don't know.
I think you've tapped on an interesting bit there that has been kind of going on in my circles, at least, is that are these changes he's proposing, these great drastic cuts, are they even enough to move the needle and get these guys, the Republicans, closer to that goal of saying we're ending waste? Yes, there is a sense that there will be disloyalists rooted out in the agencies, but what I'm really seeing is that both Musk and Trump benefit if they're able to do this massive thing, which is to rework Washington and the machinery here that allows millions, actually billions and trillions, to be pumped out into places that don't need it.
Yeah, let's talk more about loyalty. So Leon Panetta, who we heard from earlier, said basically that a cabinet full of yes men and women is a weak cabinet. John, do you agree?
Well, I tend to agree, yeah, and I'm not sure if you're going to get that here. I think that you're going to get a lot of folks who are in with the Trump vision, want to achieve the Trump vision and buy into what Trump is trying to do with kind of totally, to your point, Rena, trying to totally recast the government, try to change our relationships with international partners, trying to do a lot of things. And so they're trying to help the president achieve his vision.
But surely no one's going to challenge him because we know what that leads to. You're out.
Well, I don't know if that's necessarily the case. I also think that you have Susie Wiles, who is the chief of staff, who is not, she's not anybody's yes man. And she's someone who can tell the president exactly what's going on. And she's someone who appreciates the truth. And so I don't think that Panetta's right on this. I think that this cabinet is going to be very responsive to what Trump wants, and I think they're going to try to achieve his vision, and I think that that's a good thing.
Okay, we're out of time, unfortunately. John, Rena, thanks so much. It's hard to believe we're only 7 weeks into 4 years. How many of these cabinet members will stay the course? The previous Trump administration was nothing if not unpredictable. Who knows what we'll be talking about on the next show? But do join us then. Thanks for watching.